Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio by my good friend Brian Leonard, also of WagerTalk.com. Brian, we're going to take a look at Houston and Indianapolis. Big game in the division for these two. Houston's trying to get back in the race. It's getting a little bit interesting. If they pull off the win here, they pull within one game of Indianapolis, and they would have split the season series, so, no tiebreaker there. But, of course, the Colts, they're rolling right now. They've won 4 of their last 5, with the only loss coming to everybody's favorite team to hit the Super Bowl, and that's the New England Patriots.
Yeah, right now, we've talked in the past about how Indy does at home against poor teams. I used them a couple weeks ago in the Golden Nugget contest. But Houston's not a poor team. They're an average team. And but what is really interesting is I believe it's 11 straight times now that Indy is straight up and against the spread against divisional rivals. They dominate this division, obviously a very weak division. Houston's coming off of probably the 2 worst football teams right now, Jacksonville and Tennessee. Big offensive explosions against 2 bad teams. And Indy's defense isn't that great. They're led by their offense. But you're catching an Indy team here playing at home. They got a chance to clinch the division. The game obviously means more to Houston. Houston needs to stay alive in this very crowded wild card race in the AFC. So the pressure's on Houston here. Indy's still got games to go. Indy's going to win this division. I don't think there's anybody that has any doubt. But they've done very well against divisional rivals, and they've played well at home. I think the line's a little bit cheap here. It's 6.5, and I'm going to be on the favorite.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate, as I like to do, and you do too. And
makes for good videos.
And this is a situation where we're going to talk about this line, and it is either a great value on Indianapolis, or I've used the phrase before, a trap. Vegas enticing you to take a side. When I look at a line when it comes out, and I look at the openers, because that's where Vegas is giving you the first shot to bet at, obviously, and I looked at this and it's under the touchdown. And my opinion is, why is it under a touchdown? These teams played a while back, and since then, who's played better football, the Colts or Houston?
I'm still worried. I'm just thinking about your trap situation.
Okay. Well, obviously the Colts have played better football.
Okay.
All right. When they played the first game, the Colts were a 2.5-point favorite on the road. If you do just the simple math of flipping home field, that means they should be 8.5 here.
Okay.
And if you look at how the teams have played since then, Indianapolis has played better, plus they won on the road, so you'd add maybe another point towards the Indianapolis side. So we're looking at a game that could have easily been 8.5 or 9, and it's only 6.5. So now, yes, if you're strictly a numbers guy and a power rating guy, you're going to jump on the Colts because you see perceived value. To me, this line is under the touchdown for a reason, and if you go back and look at just blindly playing 6.5-point road dogs in the NFL, you would think because it's under the touchdown that it would be a losing proposition. It actually is not.
I've got a lot of answers here.
Okay.
If I forget one of your points, remind me. Number one, you're going off of the closing line of 6.5. I don't think this line is going to stay at 6.5. When you're going off the closing line, I fully understand that's like a 2.5. People don't want to take 2.5, and that's a very good play. So that's a great point there, if this is the closing line. 2 weeks ago, Indianapolis was hosting Washington. What'd that line go off?
The Washington game, well, it was 7.5.
7.5. 1 point higher than Houston. Is Houston 1 point better than Washington? No, Houston's a lot better than Washington is. I looked at this line, I didn't think 6.5 was a bargain. I thought 6.5 was probably the right number. So I don't look at, obviously I don't look at things the way you do. What works for you, we talked about the skin of the cat thing a few weeks ago. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Right. You treat it as if Vegas knows who's going to win. Nobody knows who's going to win these games. That's my feeling. They put out a number where they think half of the people are going to bet one side, half of the people are going to bet the other. If they put up 7, they thought all the money would come on Houston. That's the way that I have, and I've never worked in the sportsbook industry. I made some lines, but I've never worked behind the counter. But that's the way I think about these games.
Now, I understand what you're saying, and to me, when there's a game that's 2.5 or 6.5, to me, I look at it as an indicator on the same way if they make it 3.5 or they make it 7.5. Vegas is making a statement. To me, Vegas is saying the sharper side is the dog whenever they're on that side of the field goal or the touchdown, and vice versa if they're on the other side at 7.5 or 3.5. If they don't have a decided opinion, why not just come out and make the line 3 and 7 and let the bettors decide which way it should be?
Because the numbers of 3 and 7 are so valuable, they don't want to be sided on a game coming out with a game at 7, knowing all their money is going to come in on the dog, and then the line goes down to 5.5. The line ends
But you
at
just
7.
said it, where they're thinking the line go to the dog.
But there's no thinking involved. These are, they put out an opening line. The first person that comes in and bets the limit could change that opening line. They don't know any more than we do when it comes to who's going to win that game. They are just trying to get in a position where they're not sided on a game. They don't want to be middled on a game. So that's why they're very careful around the lines of 3 and 7.
All right. Well, to me, it would make more sense to start it right in the middle and let it go. You got less chance of getting.
But they're going to lose on the 7 if they take the dog.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They don't.
If it lands 7, they're safe. If they started at 7.
But if it lands 7, they don't make any money.
But you're putting exposure out there. This is one thing that this is what I've had this debate with everybody, and sometime we're going to actually have a video where we actually talk about numbers and how people view them in that, because there's always the sharp, there's I got the right number or I got the right side. That's a whole nother video.
I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of sportsbook directors in town. If we get some time, I'll ask them to come in the studio. I think that'll be a great show.
Absolutely. Okay, Brian says to take Indianapolis. I'm going to give a little hesitant. You know what? We'll wait and see what the closing line is, see if I get that 7.
But then it would throw away your whole reasoning for the point.
We got one we're going to argue about later for the lunch bet, because I already got one in the bank from last week. I don't want to just throw it away. I want to collect one from you.
You notice how cold it's been in Vegas this week? I think hell is frozen over.
Whoa. All right. And I want to tell you, next week, Brian's in the finals of the Golden Nugget contest. They completed last week. You're going to be going against
Scott Kellen.
Scott Kellen, you went against him before.
3 years ago. This is Championship Revenge Week.
There you
next
go.
Week for me.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, because I want you to spend
buy dinner. Yeah,
buy dinner. And just one last story about my man. He was in Reno last weekend with our other good friend Chris here from Vegas, and Brian actually finally bought a meal. He took Chris to an upscale seafood restaurant. Chris doesn't eat seafood. I don't have that problem, because there's no food that I won't eat. So Brian will not be able to find a restaurant to take me to that I will not bury him.
I'll find one. I'll get on that program where the guy eats the bizarre foods or whatever.
Yeah, all right. He's Brian Leonard and Marco D'Angelo. We'll be right back with another NFL game.
That was the last big debate.
Sorry, I know we